In the last video, we worked with some basic selection tools to create a very rough selection of this donut. And we used the quick selection tool in order to make this happen. Okay, so with this selection, we could either copy this on a new layer, or we could just take the move tool and kind of move it around. So there's a few things we can do, but this is actually not the way we want to work with selections, because this is what's called a destructive editing mode, where we've permanently altered the background in this case. And if I deselected this, I'm pretty much stuck with the exact way this is cut out. So I can't go back and modify my selection later, which is a real disadvantage. So let's go ahead and undo that. And instead of just moving this around with the selection active, instead I'm going to go down and go to the layers panel and click this little button to add a new mask. Okay, so this is called a layer mask. And the icon for it is this little rectangle with a circle inside. When I click on that, you'll see a couple things happen. One is that the background disappeared. And the other thing that happened is in our layers panel, we got this little new thumbnail next to the image thumbnail of this black and white mask. Okay, so that black and white mask is representing the actual layer mask. And what layer masks do is they block out parts of an image. Okay, so we still have the entire image available. And you can see if I shift click on this thumbnail, I can disable that layer mask. You can see that that original photograph is still there. And that's why this is considered a non-destructive editing mode. So when I shift click to turn this back on, the layer mask is going to start doing its job again. And now it's blocking out that part of the background. So any part that is black on the layer mask is going to block. And any part that is white is going to allow that part of the image to come through. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If I go ahead and select the image itself, okay, and I'm just going to grab the brush tool and I'm painting with black. If I paint on the image, okay, it's just going to paint black on top of the image. That's exactly how we expect the brush tool to work. But now instead of painting on the image, and I just hit Command Z to undo that, let's go ahead and select the mask itself. Okay, so the mask itself is now selected. And now when I paint with black, okay, let's go back and use black. Okay, now when I paint over this, you can see it's actually hiding more of the image. That's because I'm increasing the area of the mask, and you can see that reflected in the thumbnail. When I go ahead and paint over this area, you can see that I've painted away more of that donut, and so more of the donut is going to be hidden by that mask. Okay, alternatively, I can paint with white, so let me go ahead and flip my two colors and make sure I'm painting with white here. Okay, and again, I'm painting over the mask itself, and you can see that because I have that mask selected. Okay, now when I paint with white, I'm showing more of the image. Okay, and that's the basic way that masks work. So, and you can see that if I paint past the donut, I'm getting that layer, the background color in the back. Because remember, that background color never went away, it was still there, it was just being hidden. Okay, so I can go back and paint in this donut and create whatever sort of selection that I want. So that's why this is called non-destructive editing, because since the whole image is still there, I'm just blocking out parts of the image. I can always go back and make whatever adjustments I want to make to this mask to get the effect that I want. So when I paint on with black, I am, hiding more of the image. And you can always toggle between these by just hitting the X key. Okay, so you can see that the X key is just going to flip those colors. So if I'm painting with black, I'm hiding. If I'm painting with white, press X to flip it around. Okay, I'm showing that original image. And you can actually see what the mask looks like if you option click on the mask. Okay, so holding down option, I'm going to click, and you can see that you can see the actual white and black representation of what that mask looks like. Okay, another thing you can do is, paint with opacity. So if I go ahead and turn my opacity down to 50% with the white brush and start painting out part of this area, okay, so now this is like we have some white area, some black area, and some middle gray. I'm going to go ahead and option click on my mask again to go back to the regular viewing mode. Okay, now you can see that part of the image, and that's the part that is middle gray, is actually showing with some transparency. So masks aren't just white and black, they're also everything in between. but it's all about hiding and showing visibility. And layer masks can also be applied to adjustment layers as well. Okay, so this is a really powerful way to work with adjustments. So let's just go back. Let's actually revert back to the original thing here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is create a new adjustment layer by clicking on this little button down here, and let's go to hue and saturation. Okay, and then let's go ahead and desaturate this donut all the way down, so it's basically black and white. Okay, so on these adjustment layers, you can see that there's this little white square. Okay, so that is actually a layer mask on the adjustment layer itself. So right now, the layer mask isn't doing anything because it's all white. So remember, white allows the information to pass through. Black blocks all that information. So right now, we are through this hue saturation layer telling the image to lose all of its saturation. Okay. And the mask isn't doing anything to prevent that. But if we start to paint black on this mask, let me just go ahead and grab a brush and select a black fill color. Okay, if I paint black on top of this mask, you'll see that now we're blocking that desaturation effect from happening in the area where we're painting black. And that's because the mask is sort of blocking that adjustment from happening in certain areas. So now I can just sort of paint the color back into the donut and create, a certain effect. So if this is something that I wanted to do, this would allow me to do that. And, remember, this can apply to any adjustment layer. So let's say instead of hue saturation, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, that adjustment layer. Let's go ahead and go to levels instead. Okay, so if we brighten up our image using levels, okay, so let's brighten that up. And you can see that if I turn this on and off, it's creating a brighter effect. Okay, so if I just go ahead and grab, again, a black brush, and I have the levels layer mask selected. So it's important that I have that selected and not anything else. Okay, when I paint, you can see it's darkening the area that I'm painting over. And that's, again, because I'm constricting the ability of the levels adjustment layer to work in certain areas. So this layer mask is going to block that levels tool from working wherever I'm creating black. Okay, and that can work anywhere, and I can do anything I want to this layer mask to create the constriction of that adjustment wherever I want.